Welcome to Laughter for All. It's the podcast with Comedian Nazareth.
Well, hello, and welcome to another episode of the Live with Naz Laughter for All. This is Comedian Nazareth, and thank you so much for joining me. Have you noticed this camera change? It's just amazing. Anyway, so I'll start with you guys. Welcome, hello, and welcome to the Laughter for All podcast. I am Comedian Nazareth, and thank you for joining me for another episode number 162. 162 weeks together. I appreciate you guys are watching, listening, downloading, subscribing. I really appreciate that. So, just a little update before I bring my guest. Um, this Friday, actually, after tomorrow, Thursday, I fly to Port Charlotte, Florida. I have a show on Friday night at New Day Christian Church. I was there less than a year ago, actually, a few months ago, and right before the flooding. And then they asked me back, so I'm honored to go back and have fun. But then I have to drive 2 hours after the show and get back to Tampa to leave early in the morning on Saturday because I'm speaking at a men's conference in Snohomish, Washington, which is like north of Seattle, and it's a wonderful men's conference. Joining me will be Coach Joe Kennedy, the famous guy that won the Supreme Court case, the guy that won it, does a 30-second prayer in the 50-yard line, and they fired him because of that. And for 7 years, he's been struggling with courts and all that. Finally, um, what do you call it? The Freedom Legacy Foundation helped them, and he won the case. And they won a case for all Christians because I didn't know that, but there was something called the lemon law, and not the Carl lemon law, a lemon law that kind of always, whenever someone prays at school or somewhere or brings a Bible with them or stuff, there's always a case that they can go to. But they decided they're gonna remove that law. So there's a lot more freedom for people of faith to be able to exercise their faith in that. Now, you know me, you're like, Naz, you don't talk politics. I'm not talking politics. I'm talking Christianity. That's it. I'm excited about that. That's the end of it. So anyway, I'll be with Coach Joe Kennedy on Saturday. And then Sunday morning, I'll be speaking at the house church in Snohomish, Washington. And I'll be doing that show. Then I come home Sunday night. So anyway, 4 days gone. I don't have to clean the garage. I don't have to do anything. I used to complain like, I got to get up at 3 in the morning, get on the plane and fly to Washington. Guess what? COVID ended all complaints for every comic. We take it. If the flight is delayed, we're fine. If we get in the middle seat, we're fine. Why? Because we didn't think we're coming back to comedy, but we did. And that's a blessing. So it's just like you died like and you came back to life. And if you died and came back to life, everything is over time. Everything is extra time. So you're enjoying it. And that's exactly what's going on in my case. I'm enjoying the comedy because for 2 years I thought nothing's gonna happen. So alrighty. So my guest, he's very nice, very, very nice comedian, very funny. I met him at the CCA last year. I mean, he's been around for a while doing comedy, but I got to meet him. I'm like, they're very nice people. This is awesome. So, Brian Kohatsu, of course, we'll get to the name. Kohatsu, I probably chopped it. Kohatsu spent over 20 years as an award winning director before stepping away from the camera and for a career in comedy. He quickly found success in radio and gained national recognition when he was featured on Sirius XM radio. Brian trained with several improv troupes before transitioning to stand up. I always appreciate comics who come from improv. They're always very funny and very versatile. He now performs at various comedy clubs, casinos, churches, and corporate events around the country. His unique style appealed to all ages. See, that's a gift, people. That's very hard to do as comics. You appeal to all ages, and playful knowledge of pop culture have made him an audience favorite. A gifted performer, improviser, and writer, Brian is perfect for any event. Let's welcome my friend Brian Kohatsu. Hello, Brian.
Hello, Naz. How are you?
Okay, of course the question you always ask: did we chop your name up? Did we mess it up?
You're pretty close. Actually, I think you said it correct the first time, and then the second time
Messed it up.
you were
Yeah, I
close.
got
You're
comfortable.
90. You're 99%.
I got comfortable.
You're good.
Kohatsu?
It's Kohatsu.
Kohatsu. Now,
Kohatsu.
I have a son who's graduated from film school,
Mhm.
and he's been to the CCA a few times. He
Okay.
did stand up since he was 2, and then he did the dry bar comedy as
Okay.
a youngest. He was the youngest guy who did dry bar. But then he's a director, so he got busy with directing. And I asked him the question, "Son, you want to do more comedy?" He goes, "No, I'm a director." And what you did is you were a director,
Yeah.
and you just left that and came. Well, you didn't leave that, but
I didn't
you
leave, right.
decided.
I didn't leave it.
What was that like for you? What was the struggle? How long it took you to decide on that?
Um. Well, kind of long story short, when it comes to comedy, my father always encouraged me kind of to do comedy. He always thought it was funny, but I didn't start comedy till I was 37, I believe, was
Mm,
when I started doing improv. I did start my business pretty young. I was 20 years old when I started doing video and production work.
mm.
So in terms of the switch was I got tired of doing production. I was, 13, 14 years into it at that point. And then opportunities came up for me to do some radio, which allowed me to do some comedy. And that kind of just catapulted me into the comedy. So I don't do as much producing anymore and directing. I still do it, but just not nearly as much as I used to. It used to be 24/7, it felt like. So I kind of burnt myself out, I think, early on at doing it. So best of luck to your son. He's going to love it. Whatever his passion is, he can always go back to comedy. So there you go.
Right, right. Now you okay? So you have a are you first generation Japanese? Is that it, or you
I am second,
second?
third generation in the U.S. or second generation in the U.S.
Okay, so your dad was born here.
My dad was born here, correct,
Okay, was he funny
in his own way.
in his own?
Japanese aren't really known for their comedy, I don't believe.
That's
But my dad definitely has his own. He had his own sense of humor, as he would tell me stories of his father. His father was a very stern man. Who's his father came here in 1900 with the family, and but a very very stoic man, from what I understand. My dad was a little bit like his father, but he definitely had a great sense of humor. Like I said, my father would always tell me that I should go into comedy, which was odd because I always felt like the Japanese part was work hard and then work hard, be successful, take care of your family and that's where my mindset was. But he encouraged that all the time, more so with me than my brother and sister. I am the youngest of 3, so the youngest gets away with a lot. So I think
yeah.
that's why I was allowed to branch out a little bit. But that was my drive, I think, for me to start my business so young. I wanted to just get out there and start working and making a living for myself, and not so much for my father to be proud of me, but just I thought that would be something he would enjoy watching that process, which he did. But even with all that, he still encouraged me. You should do something with your humor, is what he always told me. So
That's amazing. That's different because I'll tell you what, I'm the youngest of 3, and of course, my dad would have encouraged me to do comedy. He didn't care,
mhm.
but my mother is the one that's always told me, "No, you got to get a job. You got to get a day job." But the person who led me to Christ and one of my best friends is a Japanese comedian
Okay,
named Yamo, which is Kent Yamawaki, and he
okay,
led me to Christ. But I mean, he's very funny. I mean, that kind of like the sarcastic humor, the
yeah,
quiet sarcastic humor.
yeah,
But
yeah.
his dad was the serious guy, and that's why I was asking because normally, you know, if your dad is funny, you're probably most likely going to be funny, and that's so. Are you any of your kids funny?
Uh, they're my son's funny, but he's like my father. He's a pretty serious kid,
Mm,
but he is very funny. He's not that serious, but I mean he's a kid. My daughter's very funny, very silly. I teach improv classes here in the Valley in Arizona, and they used to help me out with the classes with with younger. We used to do a summer camp for kids, and my kids would help out with the camp, and they're great. They know all the improv games. They jump right into it. They're very funny. My daughter's the one I can never get mad at because she makes me laugh pretty instantly when there's a problem. She can make a face and just make me laugh. So we probably have some parental issues going on with me not being able to discipline her the way I want to, because she does make me laugh. And my son sees that. So my son, not that he ever gets in trouble either, but he's a little bit more, he's easier to parent because he doesn't, he listens, and he doesn't try to get away with things the way my daughter does. But they're both funny, but my daughter's the one I think might have the chops if she ever wanted to get into comedic acting or
Isn't
stand up.
that sad? Because when my kids, like, they do something, it could be rude to their mom or to myself and stuff, but when they're funny, I'm laughing. And then when I'm laughing, my wife looks at me like, "You're encouraging them." I'm like, kind of encouraging them to be funny, but I'm not encouraging to be rude. But I mean, it's funny.
Yeah.
I can't discipline them because I'm
Yeah.
laughing. And once you laugh, they go, "Okay, we got out of
Yeah.
this."
Yeah. I think she's 16. She'll be 17 here in a few months, but she's figured me out. So that's a problem. That's why it's
Let,
like, go talk to your mom. Mom will
let
set you
me
straight.
ask you
Not me.
this, Brian. How did your improv experience, or
Mhm.
training, helped you with your individual stand up, even though they're both different? One is you're trying to make a group, to be in a group and everybody lift
Yeah.
one another to you tell us. I've never, I studied a little bit of improv, but I was
Yeah.
never an improv guy.
I have a whole philosophy on that. Not that, people who start stand up by themselves and kind of are successful with that, that's great. They probably were funny as a child and know how to communicate that way. Myself, coming from, I really was never a performer. I never did theater or anything else like that. Obviously, I got into production, so I'm behind the camera. Don't see me, I'll make everybody else look great. And so with improv, that was one of those things where it kind of introduced me to performing. Um, and then it was comedian Mike James, who encouraged me to try stand up.
Uh-huh.
But a lot of that, I think improv really helped me learn how to perform, first of all. And then the safety of having other people around you, especially when you're trying to do comedy. It's easier to bomb as a group than it is by
True.
yourself. And I think what improv taught me going into stand up was that with improv, you do your little improv games or you do your scenes. And if it doesn't go well, then the director, scene, and we're done. And then we move on to the next thing. And so even if you have a minor success or you have a failure, you're on to the next thing. And so with stand up, it's not like if you start bombing, then you just feel like it's a bomb for the whole rest of the set. My mentality is that joke didn't work, let's get them on the next one. So it's kind of like those scenes were successes and fails. Then each individual joke kind of holds its own. So if I bomb on one joke, it's not the end of the world, let's get them back on the next one. So instead of looking at your set as one whole, I kind of have broken it up that way to like, okay, let's get back on. So mentally, I don't feel like, oh no, I'm bombing. And because you see kind of that mentality happen with some people, like, uh-oh, they don't like me. And then it gets worse and worse for them on stage because their mindset isn't there. So I think improv gave me a stronger mindset to say, just keep going, put your best face forward with everything that you're doing, moving on. So, but there's a lot I got from improv, and I still teach classes now for adults. My current class I have right now is all comedians. They're all stand-up
Oh,
comedians who have never done improv before. So, it's difficult to, because improv is about that give. The two of us in the scene, I'm going to make you look good. That's my job, is to make you look good, set you up for jokes so that you get the laugh. And then hopefully you're doing the same for me. So there's a lot of just, you have to give up going for the punchline all the time and pass it over to somebody else and make them look good. So there's a struggle that comics have when they take an improv class like that at first to kind of let go. But
yeah.
eventually it does come with most of them.
I
Some
never
people are
got
just made
over
to
it.
do
That's
stand-up.
why I quit.
Yeah,
Improv.
it can be. I can see the difficulty doing stand-up first and then going into improv second. So
Oh,
yeah, yeah.
that's wonderful. And so what was it? I mean, you sound like you had a normal life growing up, parents home, Did you get bullied? Anything? Where did you grow up? What
I
state?
In Arizona. I was born and
Yeah.
raised in Arizona, still live here. Yeah, I had a pretty normal childhood. My father was a farmer. Um, we I was lucky, even though I'm half Japanese, and but I grew very quickly. So I was a big kid. So I
Mm.
didn't get bullied ever. Maybe a little bit for second grade, but that's normal kid stuff. But by the time I was in sixth grade, I'm pretty much the height I am now. I've just filled out since then. But yeah, I don't want to say I was a bully, but I was protective of a lot of kids in the neighborhood. I wasn't the biggest kid, but I was big. But just it kind of goes to show like bullying really isn't so much about size sometimes as much as it's about what you say. I have a friend of mine who's very close to me when we were growing up as kids, and he was much smaller than me when I first met him in sixth grade. And over the years, he grew and he became the number one athlete at our high school, and he was about 6'2",
Wow.
just big guy. But mentally, I had it over him all those years because I was bigger and I was a little bit faster in terms of my humor. And I remember in high school, he was walking around campus, and he was big man on campus. You know, he had a strut about him. And I was with my buddy, who was I believe he was a year younger than me, my friend, and I said, so here comes Jim. I said, look at him. Look how cocky he is walking around. I said, watch this. We walked by him and I said, hey, buddy, like this. And he flinched. I mean, we're talking, I'm only 5'8". So the fact that he flinched, he still remembered me.
That's
I
a
mean,
big
we
guy.
were
Yeah.
still good friends, but yeah. So mentally he knew like, oh, you know, because we used to box at my house, just messing around all the time. And I'd beat him down pretty good sometimes, all in good fun, never the face. But
So, what
yeah,
would you choose? Would you choose directing or stand up if you have to choose one?
whew, I think stand up. The
Stand
older
up.
I get too, my body can't take lugging gear around and everything else. It's funny though, I would say in the last 2 years, I started teaching a class at the university here at Arizona State University. I'm teaching careers in media. And the more I'm teaching, it's making me really want to make a film at the moment. So, which I thought that part of me was kind of recessed and a little dead, but it's making me want to do something. So we'll see. I don't know what the future holds for that in terms of me actually doing a full feature, I, but right now it's stand up. But even with stand up, when I'm doing stand up, I wish I was doing improv. When I do improv, I wish I was doing stand up. So whatever I'm doing, I miss the other.
You're never anywhere, huh?
But yeah, I
That's
know, I know.
You are very funny, and I want to ask you this about directing. Before, I mean, you mentioned you want to do a film. Have you read the book "Save the Cat"
No,
by?
I've heard of this
Uh,
though.
it's the best book about writing a script. I mean, it's the only book you need for.
Okay.
And I'm reading it right now, and it just really, I mean, just gets you into wow. You can see the film in your head when you
Hmm.
start following their direction. But
Yeah.
as a director, what would make a good director? Other than, I mean, some people always he's a director, award-winning director and stuff.
Sure.
What would make a good director from a bad
Well,
director?
I mean, definitely you're the leader on set, so you've got to have leadership, abilities. But you also need to be you need to be a compassionate person because you're in charge of a large crew, and you've got to be able to know that you have to know what everybody's doing. You have to be
Mm,
aware of what they're doing, the time schedule of which they're doing it. You have to, you have to. They're looking to you to guide them. So you have to have the ability to, basically get everybody on the same page for the same goal. So you really you have to be very calm. First of all, you can't be a hothead because if yelling starts on set, it's not good for anybody. So you do have to just kind of, you can't micromanage everybody, but you got to let everybody in their department do their thing, and then just keep that communication open. I myself, most of the stuff I did was all corporate, but I did some TV shows and things like that, smaller
oh,
shows. But with that, it was, and that goes back to the comedy. I always kept it very light on set. It's okay. This isn't the end of the world. Come on, guys. All right, let's go. All right, cheerleader. I was a big cheerleader. I still do that with whether it's improv or whatever. I try to be that improv when I'm teaching my classes too, and make sure that everybody's like, if we're not having fun, let's not try to take certain things. Certain things need to get done, but you can do that in a way that's compassionate and say, I know where you're at. If you need my help, I'm here for you. Yeah, if we need more bodies, let's go do it. So leadership, but you got to be compassionate, but you've got definitely got to see what the end goal is. So
right. I just normally don't go that early to the audience, but there's a comment from Danette Sweeney. Sweeney, I really enjoyed a set I saw you in. I'm not sure how I was invited to join you all. I've attempted to link in with you, although a logo displays Mensa. I am a farmer as well in North Carolina and have written plays for years. God bless you and continued success to you both. Well,
Oh,
thank you.
yeah,
Your
thank you.
father was a farmer, and now Danette is a farmer. And here's Michelle Van Dusen, a wonderful Christian comedian, was we
Michelle,
love.
yeah.
Yeah, a good director has a megaphone, sits in a director chair, and carries a
Yeah.
horse whip.
Right.
Sure.
That's a good director, Michelle, not a great one. So,
Now let me ask you this: in your bio, we mentioned something and just really intriguing when you say that, and that's a lot of pressure nowadays when it says that you can understand the culture, appeal to all ages, and playful knowledge of pop culture. Tell us, give us some wisdom. Where are we at with that?
well, I think things are changing in the last 2 weeks for me. For some reason, the older I get, everyone seems to want to point out that I'm getting older. I know I'm getting older. I don't know why they keep telling me. Um, it's really funny because, like, with having prior to having kids, it was my wife and I, and so I watched a lot of movies, obviously, and things like that, and kind of kept up with what films were coming out, what was in production, and that. And then I started a radio show, and we were kind of talking about all those kind of things. And then that's right around the time I had my kids. But with my kids, I found out that they're not keeping up with what I'm keeping. I need to see what they're doing. So I need to see what shows are they watching, what music are they listening to, and now, the way social media is now, it's so hard to I'm trying. I tell my daughter all the time, tell me what's going on, not just for myself because I want to know what you're doing. I also want to know for comedy, for just the sake of their safety, my safety. My wife has no clue sometimes. When it comes to pop culture, she does not know. The kids will say something, I'll know based on maybe something they said, a week or so ago, and my wife will not know what's going on. So it's like, just, the older my wife gets too, I just feel like if anyone falls for a scam around this house, it's going to be her because she's not keeping track of everything that's going on. So, yeah, I think it's super important to kind of, not obviously be too much into the everything that's going on, but at least to kind of know where, especially with your kids, what's going on there, understand what those trends are, because some of them are pretty creepy. But I got good kids. Um,
That's
they'll
awesome.
sometimes they tell me what's going on just so I know what's going
Y-
on.
my kids, I have a 24, 21, and then 15. And in the last few months, I just signed up to volunteer our junior high ministry
Yeah,
just to know what's going on with that generation that's
yeah.
so hopeless and have no, what do you call it? And their comedy is different. I mean,
Hmm.
you
Oh
try,
yeah,
like 10 years ago, if you talk to a junior high, you do some of your jokes and they're laughing. That's like they look at you like, where I got a lot of work to do.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, uh,
Well, here's a great example. My kids. So a year ago, I did a comedy album, which was a sketch album. Okay.
oh,
Um, so it's old school. It's old school sketches, That's all it is. There's no video to it. There's no visuals. It's just something you listen to, and it's a sketch, and it's a
oh, it's
throwback.
an
Yeah, it's an
audio
audio. It's like
album.
a throwback to the old, like, Cheech and
Bob Hope.
Chong,
And
or
yeah.
yeah. So my kids had no concept. Just to kind of give you an idea, my son just turned 20, and my daughter is 16, about to be 17, and they had no concept of what this was, to
Uh-huh.
listen to a sketch that had no visuals to it. So once they kind of heard what I was doing, then they were on board, like, okay, I get it. It's not that they really want to sit and listen to it, or their friends would either. It was more of a passion project for me. But that is something that's completely out of their wheelhouse. It's almost too long of something for them to listen to. So you're right. I got to know my audience, which, again, passion project for me. I know the 40s, 50s, and 60s people are going to
Uh-huh.
like it, but yeah, trying to keep up because their brain, they're 15 seconds,
Yeah.
TikTok, everything else, that's it. So, uh, And I'm a
Yeah.
storyteller with most of my humor, so it's tough to get a quick one-liner in with the kids, make them laugh, and then
Yeah.
try to get out.
I have no clue what they're gonna do because right now they're removing TikTok, of course, from government, but then again they're gonna remove it from the U.S. So I don't know what's gonna happen to our young people. Maybe they'll come
Yeah.
back to Instagram. But let me ask you this: have you ever, were starving and needed to do comedy to cover your bills? Have you ever been in or to direct to find the next job?
Yeah, well, I had a pretty rough decade a few years back.
Tell me
Because
about it.
the housing market, tanked where it was 2009, I believe.
Yeah, eight
Um,
and nine. Yes.
yeah, and I had a very big client that I was working with that had been with me nearly my entire, from the beginning of my business, pretty much. So at that point, it was almost 20 years that they were with me as a client, and they were such a big client that I ended up going to work for them full time. Um, 2 years prior to 2009, so 2007, and things were going great, making the most money I've ever had in my entire life. Things were great. New house, kids are great. I'm home finally. I don't have an office anymore. I'm actually working from my house. I'm home with the kids, get them off to school. Things could be better. That was a nice 2-year run there. And then the housing market crashed. And right before the housing market crashed, that company I was working for, they had a change in some investors that had come in,
Mm.
and it was medical related. So when you're dealing with insurance and all that, it got crazy. So with that being said, they ousted the founder and CEO, and then things started happening. And it was a Christian organization
Mm.
also. And the new owners really were not interested in the Christian component of treatment. So people were getting fired left, right. I mean, being their video guy too, you would think I would have a little bit more, value to them, which I did for a little while, and then it didn't. So I think they went from 1,000 employees back down to like maybe 300. So it was crazy. But I, at that point, literally had put all my eggs into one basket. I did have a few extra clients that I still service some of the hospitals here in the Valley, but that became like stark. That was a 10-year period of just rebuilding. And I was probably in my second year of doing improv comedy at that point. So we're getting shows here and there. And, I was right around that time. Yeah, I just started stand up actually at that point. That's right. Because I heard when things went down, I was maybe doing my fourth or fifth show ever.
Wow.
Which, at that point it's not paid. So,
Right.
but improv kept me alive. And I don't know. I know God took very good care of us during that time period, because in hindsight, there was hardly anything coming in. And the industry was changing too for production, in that we were going from standard definition into high definition. I couldn't afford to buy new equipment at that point. Somehow managed to still keep going, with my other equipment. But it was, yeah. And it's that building and starting over. Cause again, I started my business when I was 20 and just kind of hit the ground running, and things were great. So I was 30. I don't know how old I was then. It's in my early 30s, when all
Wow.
this kind of, about 35, I'd say, maybe in the middle. So, so just rebuilding yourself, reimagining your career, how it looks, and going from there, but never giving up faith. That's for sure. God, like I said, God was there, got us through this, because without that, I don't know where we'd be right now. I mean, we managed to keep our house too throughout that.
Praise God.
So, but yeah, you do what you have to. And my
Yeah.
wife is my wife's a professional golfer.
Professional golfer. Of course,
Yeah,
in Arizona, somebody has to be.
sure. But to kind of give you an idea, just to kind of, she didn't start golfing until she graduated college. So she was about 23 years old when she started playing golf, and then within a year she got good enough and she's played on tour. And talk about it in my stand-up, because nobody can do that. Nobody can play for 1 year and suddenly, but she is a workaholic. She excels at sports. She played college basketball. She did that. She's not afraid to work. So during that time period too, she did everything she could do. I did everything I could do. And again, kept our family together, kept our roof over our head. Again, she's amazing, but she's the one who led me to Christ. So I mean, she's the one she's responsible for
Tell
everything
me
in this
about that.
household that keeps it here.
So you were already married when she led you to Christ, or before?
Before. So
Before.
my wife and I, so it's all these amazing facts. So my wife and I met when we were in third grade. So we
Oh,
were 7 years old.
okay.
So we've known each other our entire lives. So we started dating the end of our junior year of high school. And around that time, and she was very, yeah, I knew her all those years. We were friends. I didn't know she went to church, but it was kind of like, I just knew she went to church. We never really, and again, it's, when we're young kids, you're boy, girls, it's, ooh, girls are gross kind of thing, through all those years. But when we started dating, I mean, it was very quick. She told me what she was about, where she came from, her upbringing, and what she was looking for in a relationship with somebody very quickly. So it was very, very quickly put on the table that I'm a Christian. This is who I am. These are my values. And if you're not about that, then this probably can't move forward. So it was, and I wasn't going to church. I grew up early on in church, but then, and that's a whole nother story. But my parents kind of drifted away from church. And so, but she's the one who reintroduced me into going back to church. And then her dad was fantastic. By the time we got into college, her dad actually, we had a one-on-one Bible study that we did for probably 6 months to a year meeting. And so it was good because I got to know this guy who would eventually be my father-in-law. And he really helped lead me to Christ too. And so, yeah, I mean, my whole Christian life would be non-existent without my wife, and laying down the law pretty quick on that it was good because with our kids, we've done that too. We've led by, we're an example to our children to say, don't date anybody that, you're not going to marry. It's a waste of your time. Not that you can't try to win this person over, but you can do that without the relationship portion. And, you pray for somebody for your kids. And my daughter has her first boyfriend. You could not ask for a better kid. We love this kid to death. He goes to our church. And he's not even involved in the youth ministry at our church right now, but he's in some other church he'd gone to prior to that. But he's a great godly kid, and you could not ask for more. So it's a true blessing to have him, right now. It's been 6 months, I think. So it's a new relationship, but they were very slow to even say they were boyfriend, girlfriend. And I think that's all modeled because of, what she knows of our relationship.
That's a hard thing. I mean, that's our only rule. They have to be believers. And so far my daughter's 21, haven't dated yet. My other one's 15, haven't dated yet. So I'm like, thank you, Lord.
Yep.
but that's praise God for your wife. That's Let me ask you some questions, and then we'll from the audience. We have about 105 people right now. It says, so Sarah was asking about the attention span of this new generation of kids. Do you think a short attention span with most kids these days make it a bit more challenging these days?
Absolutely. But I will say children in general will have a shorter attention span. Stand-up is very difficult for little kids, whereas improv, silly face, silly body motion, something like that, they're on board laughing. They don't know why. They'll enjoy it that way. Somebody else had commented in there, I think I read about, how you present comedy to your children too.
Okay.
And they'll learn. I completely agree with that. My kids are, yes, they're involved in like the social and the 15-second laugh, 10 to 15-second laugh, but my kids will sit and watch a comedy special with me. They will sit and watch a funny movie with me, and without, not always without the phone in their hand, but they're only human. But yeah, they get it. Like Carol Burnett's on, one of the stations late at night, and they'll wander in the room with mom and I and watch a few minutes of it too, and get a chuckle out of it too. Even myself watching Carol Burnett's a great example. Some of those sketches were very long.
Yeah.
They don't play as quick as I remembered them in my head. It's like, wow, this is like almost the whole show is like, this one sketch. So, yeah, I think it's a learned thing too, but I do think it's difficult because they don't have the attention span for longer types of comedy. And hopefully
Right.
they'll figure that out
I hope
on their
so.
own.
I hope so because I had the pleasure of working with Mr. Tim Conway a few times, and just
Okay, great.
amazing,
Wow.
amazing Christian man, and just the comedy back then was different. I mean, he was funny like us, like every 15 seconds he's
Mhm.
funny.
Yeah.
But the other cast members, they're waiting for that big punchline.
Yeah.
Uh, let's see. Danette said y'all, even though I don't know where she's in, what state she's in, but y'all will throw it up oh, she's in North Carolina. Of course, we all.
Okay. That makes
You're too
sense. Go.
stimulating. I love hearing interesting and innovation in influencers when it comes to our children. These are the people who will care for us as we age, right? They need civil, compassionate, and consistent training. Otherwise, if they can't care for us with a controller and a medical emoji, that's God is how the only way to keep going. I will be back. Very okay. Have you ever done comedy at the golf course? Stop it, Michelle.
Yeah. Oddly, yes.
Uh, of course, inside the club, not on the field.
Not on the course.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Oh, okay,
I don't
maybe.
know. I don't know if you saw me. If you've ever seen me with a club in my hand, that is pretty humorous, though. But not a good golfer. The wife's great. I am a wreck. So
Now,
mhm.
let me go through. Okay, you did your dry bar comedy. How did you feel about that? And how did you? I want to hear about your creative process. From you said the third time I was up on stage, and boom, my business crashed.
Yeah,
To the first your full dry bar stand up comedy. What was
yeah.
that like?
Well, I kind of mentioned that, at one point I started doing radio. And so I was writing sketches for radio and I would do the call-ins, doing impressions and that was kind of my introduction to radio. I did that particular show for a year and then I did another show with myself and somebody else for another year. And that's where I really learned how to do daily jokes for, whatever was going on in the news, do a little monologue at the beginning, not so much a monologue, but my friend would read news stories. I would do the punchlines, and that was kind of how the show went. And then just evolving into improv, working with a team, and kind of creating something out of nothing, and then going into stand up, learning how to write. Prior to Dry Bar, um, I finally got to where I thought I'm getting my voice, and I really am figuring this out a little bit better. I'm feeling confident. That was all set up, and then the pandemic hit. So then everything got iced. So by the time I got asked to come back, was still during the pandemic, which was October of 2022,
Oh,
or 2020. What was that?
21.
2020.
Oh,
Yeah,
oh.
2020. Actually, it's
Did you
2020.
say come back? Did you do it first time before?
No, I was when I literally signed my contract. It was, I believe, the next day that they called and said everything's canceled, everything's shut down. Like
Yeah.
that's how close to everything was going. So that was March, and then come October is when I actually did my dry bar special of 2020.
So
So
there was not a lot of audience because I know John did it in that
there was
time. There was like 20
50,
people and
yeah,
50. That's a
50
big
people.
audience for
Most of
COVID.
them
Yeah.
wearing masks. Yeah.
Yep.
Um, but I will say, not having any stage time, it was rough to get back on the horse and learn how to ride again.
Right.
I was very fortunate. Arizona, we kind of
Don't care. You didn't have
COVID was
COVID.
kind of like, yeah, we had it kind of for a week. So come September, into September, everything had opened back up. So I basically, between the end of September and those weeks following, I got 18 shows under my belt very quickly when we reopened. I called in every favor I had. So just show after show after show. So was able to, I'm happy with the dry bar special. It wasn't exactly the same person I was, prior to pandemic, but pretty close. And you evolve as a comic anyway. So looking back, I'm not that guy anymore either. So, but yeah, that was interesting because I don't know if I should talk about this. I don't write anything down. So a lot of comics hate me because I do not have it written down verbatim. It's just an
Oh,
improv thing of me that everything is in my head. So come dry bar, I had to watch old sets to remember my set because it's not written. I have, notes, little, phrases, but it's not verbatim written down anywhere. So It did, talking about process, it did teach me to create a process to where I need to write down my entire set and my entire jokes and really edit them
You
better.
mean word by word and all that?
Yeah, I never do that.
I
So,
have a hard time with that personally, but I mean,
yeah.
I mean, I kind of sometimes if a joke, once a joke works very well, then I start, I write it down and start cutting down
Yeah.
to make
Yeah,
it
yeah.
shorter.
You can edit it at that point.
Yeah, but
So,
I mean, I know several comics because I listen to what's his name, Kevin Hart's podcast, and there's
mhm.
several comics like Kevin Hart is the same way. He doesn't write anything down, and some people, I mean, I appreciate people like you, but I'm so when it comes to right before the show, I'm writing one word from each joke.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
mean, I'm writing, I'm putting blocks. I'm going to do this block first, second block there.
Yeah.
I have
I do that. I do the blocks. I got
yeah,
my blocks.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
I just can't just sit down and write it all out. I just have to kind of, it's improv in me. I have to feel kind of where the audience is at and kind of react with the audience and kind of go with the flow. So if the words aren't verbatim how they should be every show, you know, it just kind of flows, ebbs and flows.
So when you started your comedy, it was more. I'm sure. I mean, just adding the word Japanese or Middle Eastern stuff. Your act was about being ethnic in the beginning. Is that what was the act?
Very much so. Yeah.
And
Yeah. I have I mean, I was I was watching your dry bar and you have a very similar, my joke is I'm half Japanese, half Caucasian, so I do appreciate everyone speaking Spanish to me in the parking lot. Um, that's where we start, and then it just goes from there.
goes
I mean,
from there.
it gets a
Yeah.
good laugh everywhere. Arizona, it gets an even heavier laugh because everybody automatically. I still get people after shows who are like, "You were joking about being Japanese, right?" I'm like, "No, what for, for an entire set? No, 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 no." So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
but
So yeah, the writing process. How you said you don't write, you think on your head, but I mean, don't you just go, okay, I'm going to talk about this, and then when you go and, eh, I mean, there must be a creative process that goes into. You're not
yeah,
on stage every single night, right?
sure. I mean,
Yeah. So you gotta.
a lot of my set though is family related, so it is about my family, and fortunately, they do interesting things all the time. So, um,
Thank God. Huh?
from my wife quickly becoming a pro to all the things that she deals with, working at the course, and then my friends loving my wife being a golfer and wanting to golf for free, to my dog. I have a couple of unusual dogs, and my kids are growing and they've got things and that happen to them all the time. So I really just keep my eyes and ears open. That's left over from improv too, is experience. You got to experience life first of all,
Right.
and do the things you don't want to do. We all get invitations to weddings and go, "Ugh, it's the only weekend I had off." Well, go see what happens.
Yeah.
Something might just happen that you can tell a story about or base something else off of it. So, my improv class, I encourage them all the time. This is where characters come from. People relatives, friends. They have funny voices or they do something funny or odd. This is the creative process. So, I try to pull that from just what's around me in terms of what I see and friendships and all that. So that's like comics. I tell them all the time, don't don't just be in the comedy club to watch comedy and be around it, because you're giving up your life to just watch somebody else do something. Go have dinner with an old friend, go talk to somebody, do something, but go have a life experience that you can come back. That's what comedy is. Go out and report what happened in the world, so
You're right. You're
that's what I kind
complete.
of do, is try to look, because everybody always complains about plagiarism with comics. Oh, that guy stole my joke. Well, no one's stealing my joke because they don't have the same life as me. So that's why I try to stick as close to the personal stuff. And I do have jokes about things, but
Right.
the bulk of my material is from family. So
I think it also makes us more tolerable of people, weird people, or annoying people. Because I go, man, there's a bit right there. Let me spend 5 more minutes with that
right,
person, and
right,
let's see
exactly.
where that
Tell me
goes.
something more about yourself, or what do you think of this? And just
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And that
Uh,
really, to go back to my dad, that is a thing about, I've always, my father was um, very slow to speak, because he'd always listen to somebody when he first meet them. tell me about yourself. And you just sit there and ask a few questions and get to know this person. And really kind of, he'd always say you learn a lot about a person if you just, shut up and
And let
listen,
him go.
and it's true. When you meet those interesting people, you go, please tell me more, so, because it's not your point of view, obviously, and that's why it's so interesting. So,
What's the most embarrassing thing that happened to you on stage or heading to a club or to a show?
oh man, that's a great question. Nothing's jumping out because I live a pretty charmed life. I'm kidding. Let me think. Gosh.
I mean, if you don't think of it, you don't. I mean, when it comes to you, that's fine. I know sometimes if someone asks me this, I can't think right away.
The one thing that always, when you said on stage, the one thing that always happens to me, which I find completely just so odd, is that I always experience the most microphone malfunctions of any other person.
As a director, sure.
Right, exactly. The guy who knows how to do it. I've had, the cables pop off, the microphones go dead if they're wireless. I've had several instances where the cord is not long enough,
Yeah.
or nailed down to something. That was the worst. I had one that was zip tied, and they like 3 feet on each side, but you couldn't even move the stand out of the way. You had to have it in front of you. Yeah, lots of microphone stuff. I don't know what that's about, but that's the most on stage. Someone said, "You ever fall down?" I fall down on purpose a lot on stage. So in doing improv, which I don't do as much anymore because now I'm getting older and my body's starting to hurt. So,
what makes you angry?
I am so slow to anger, but I would say it has to deal with, if it's anything that deals with family unhappy for whatever reason, or a wrong that's being done to them. Sometimes, like with my kids, it's not the biggest wrong in the world, but to watch them hurt by something, that's very upsetting to me. And I think that's me maturing over the years, because I would say when I was younger, I would get mad at dumb things that don't matter, that I thought mattered, that in hindsight, these are non-essential things to my life. Either it be work related or something to that degree. But yeah, very much with my family. And also, I mean, that carries over to my friends too, if anything else is going on with them. I don't like to see people unhappy that normally are, especially when they're, vibrant people. If something brings them down, health issues or anything else like that, it's not.
That's right.
And again, the older you get to, and the older friends that you have too, you start experiencing some of those medical things earlier with them. And as a kid, my dad used to have medical issues with his heart, and I was a young kid. My father was a lot older than a lot of the people in the neighborhood, his fathers. But my dad experienced health issues, and that matures a kid pretty quick. So those are the things you don't want to do in life, and you don't want to face. But you gotta. That's when you learn that you got to say the tough things. If you haven't said "I love you" to somebody, that's when you got to come up to the plate and say it. And
that's good advice.
That's the stuff. So,
if God said to you, "Hey, Brian, one wish right now will happen. What do you want?"
Whew. Boy, you ask good questions.
Thank you.
No more microphone problems. I'm kidding. That's nothing. Wow, that's a great question.
Let me narrow it down.
The guilty pleasure of that question would be, I would love 10 more minutes with my dad. For sure. Because
when did he pass away?
He passed away when my son was 9 months old, and so he did get to see my son, but he didn't get to see him grow. He didn't see my daughter, and he never actually really saw me get to do comedy ever. So really, 10 minutes to give him an update, that would be awesome. But I'm sure he knows what's going on. So, that would be the guilty pleasure. But I think this world needs a big hug from God. There's just so much going on.
How about career? What if it was a career wish? What would you ask for?
I feel like I have so many multiple careers going on. I would like to settle on one, which would probably be comedy. And if I could get out more and even have the chance to like bring family with me, and kind of experience this together, but also get out of the desert. and allow them to see a little bit more of the world. My wife being a professional golfer, she got to get out and travel quite a bit in the early years. She's trying to get on the senior tour now, so she'll be gone out in the world again. So if we can merge those careers and get on the road in the same path, that would be fantastic. So
That's awesome. Yeah, you can do cruise ships while she's doing them. Yeah.
yeah, there you go.
Let's see. I wanted to ask you something about the what do you call it? The evolving of your comedy throughout the years. Like you were saying earlier to me, like we all evolve. How is the material is different now, even though you still talk about family? How do you feel your?
Well, I think early on, especially like when I started in radio, the thing that I could do is with celebrity voices. So I would do a lot of impressions.
You do?
And
who's your favorite?
They're all old impressions now. Nobody knows them. That's the problem. Who's my favorite? Gosh, what do I do anymore? I don't know. They're all lazy impressions now.
Okay.
That's a great question. You asked some good stuff. I don't know. I do this one crazy little Gary Busey thing, which people seem to like. It's just basically you just do whatever you want. Anyway, but I used to do impressions so much that people assume my set would be about impressions, which I had a very small thing I used to do of impressions. But that never kind of became. I would do jokes about celebrities, this and that and all that, because that was kind of in my wheelhouse. And that's the thing where that kind of got dropped to the point where, oh no, the family stuff is more important to me and more universal to everybody else. Because again, the pop culture stuff fades. And if you don't keep up with that, and it's harder now. I mean, plus to see an old guy do an impression of a really young kid, who wants to see that? I don't know. Can pull it off. But I will say this: the greatest compliment I think I got was Joby Sad. Joby Sad. Joby one year said to me, he goes, "What I love about your set so much is that when you're done, I know how much you love your family." And that really caught me off guard because I thought it's never been written that way on purpose. But he said that's the one thing he said, and I said, "Wow, that's a huge compliment. I didn't even put that together." But I also am a comic who, lots of comics will complain about their wife, complain about their spouse, complain about their kids. I mean, my wife, I know she's better than me. I can't talk down about her at all. There's nothing I can. So I talk about the good things that she does and the impossible things that she does that other wives don't do. I mean, nobody becomes a golf pro in a year. She did. And she has a higher standard of excellence than most people, just due to the fact that I can do anything I put my mind to, and I'm just like, I just want to tell a joke. Same thing with the kids. I try to lift up my kids as opposed to some people just push them down for the things they do bad. I try to talk about the things they do good, they do well. And so, yeah, it's just, I don't know. And that's an improv thing. That's the yes, and it's the yes, not the no, but it's the yes. And why is it so great? Tell me more about that. And kind of go from there. So
that's awesome. I think that's also, I mean, I'm the same way. I love my wife, love my kids. I joke a little bit about them, but not in a way, demeaning way. And you notice people, it's like it encourages them. And it's like they come after the show, they go, "Man, you love your wife, you've been married almost 27 years, and you love your wife and you love your marriage, and we got that, and that's encouraging." Yeah. We go, "Wow, I wasn't planning. I was trying to find the joke in there, trying to get to the punchline." But thank you.
But it's funny, you're just living,
and
those years go by, and it's so many years of like, it's that shared history and that love and everything else, and it's all the good times. And let's talk about those good times, because no couple's perfect, that's for sure. I know I got a slew of problems my wife's told me about, but we're working on them. We're working on them since third grade. Someday I'll come around.
Yeah, that's a long time to work on them. Let me see. There's some questions we have about 107. Normally we have more, but the 107 people are watching, and they ask questions. And one of them is like, "When will you do your second dry bar special?" I can answer that for you. When you pay off the $15,000,
exactly. That's the first thing that went through my head.
They charge. The first $15,000 of your show they take, of course, to pay for the production,
Yeah.
which they had 3 people on, on the show.
Uh-huh.
So it didn't cost no
Yeah.
$45,000, but
Believe me, as a person in production, I know the cost of these things.
yeah, it was not even close. But I met my goal, and I'm getting checks from them, so I can't be
Okay, good.
complaining. So, but yeah, that's
I'm
the
rather
second
new.
one.
I got a long way to go. So if
Mm.
anybody's out there, watch it. Do me a favor,
Oh,
watch my special.
let's see. Oh my God, I'm so missing Live with Naz. Me too. I'm missing my show Live with Naz. I write everything down and then can't find where I put the notes. Okay, Michelle. Okay, let's see. Questions. I think Tim Hawkins called it watching strangers and taking notes. Yep. Same with
Mm,
Kevin Hart and everybody. They do that. We
yeah,
try to be in places like, hey, you wanted to go to a funeral? Okay, I'll go. Because yeah,
might as
and
well.
then we got a stage in for ready right now. Okay. What's the best gig Brian has ever had? Sarah's asking this. What's
Best gig.
the best gig? What do you remember it still, I'm sure.
Wow, a lot of good ones. Getting out of town is always a great thing. I mean, in town they always treat you like the local kid who
You're
did
local,
good.
yeah.
Yeah. Um, it's funny. This is kind of a local thing. It's not even a comedy related. Well, it is comedy related. I was working with a woman who was a storyteller,
Uh-huh.
and she was very well known for telling stories. And she did a thing here in Arizona for the Phoenix Symphony. So it was
Mm,
a symphony with all the music, the entire orchestra symphony was behind us, and I was doing puppets off to the side, doing voices and all that, and I had one walk-on part. Um, and this is really before I was doing no stand-up at the time. I was only doing improv. But I
uh-huh.
recall walking out on stage, not realizing there were 3,000 people in this place, and it's high up. It's very high up. But I remember keeping my composure, getting through my line, and then the woman I was with botched a line, and I had to correct the line very quickly. And then it got a huge laugh. And I remember walking off going, wow,
I,
exhausting. But it was my first experience with a
huge one.
humongous audience. And then just the fact too that the symphony is so amazing with them playing. It was quite the experience at all. And just to even have that, 1 minute on stage experience kind of, I don't know if that fueled me to say, I want more of this. And that's what made me kind of do more improv and seeing that there was a potential career in comedy at that
Wow.
point. So, but
That's
that one
awesome.
always rings true in my head because it was just it's the first time I've seen that from a stage, that many people at one time.
Wow. That's a question for Michelle. Have you ever worked on a cruise ship? Have you ever done cruises?
Have not. Not sure how this desert boy will do on a boat, to be honest.
I'm waiting. Like I told myself, I'm not gonna do cruises till I'm really older, where I really, it's
Yeah.
like you can be for 7 days and just
Yeah.
like,
My wife wants to do it just because, she can come with,
yeah.
but then I still got to work.
But then you have to know which cruiser. You gotta be established
Yeah.
to where the room they give you. It's not
Hmm.
this with the crew, but it's an actual stateroom that's nice.
Right. Right.
Uh, so I'm
And
waiting
the
for.
amount of just some of those cruises too, they want you to do the adult show, which is like, and I'm not going to change my material. So it just needs to be more material.
Andy Beningo, who's also a Christian comic, he does
Mhm.
a lot of cruises, and he refuses to do
Yeah.
dirty. He still does the second show, but he does,
Yeah.
uh, you know,
Yeah. Just be true to yourself. That's just it too. People always
wow.
ask, do you do different stuff? No, my stuff works across the board. So I don't have to make up separate.
What is something you learned about your walk with the Lord that you can close with and encourage the people before we ask you about what you're working on or how they can get a
Yeah.
hold of you? What
Uh,
is?
you know, it's patience. I think, everything is not, especially now, everybody wants everything immediately. And that's how society but you got to walk away from society. And God really does have his own time schedule. And after a while, you start seeing that work. But you just have to be patient and you have to listen and know that it's him, it's not you. You keep when you walk, be faithful, and continue to pray. But it is patience. Oddly enough, my middle name is a Japanese name. It's Matsu, which
Matsu.
is the translation is patient.
Mm,
And before I really knew that, my wife accuses me. She's like, "How do you not get upset about things?" I'm like, "Because it's not my nature, but I am very patient on things. Let's just see how these things unfold. Let's see what works out." And my wife is very, very quick to um, want resolution, but and very quick to like, I can fix this. But like with our children and just other things, it's just like let's just be patient. Let's see how it works. Again, like I said, I just came out of like a really bad decade of finance, but we made it through, and we wouldn't have if we were you know
impatient.
impatient. Yeah, so patient, patient, patient. I think yeah, all in God's time.
Amen. Amen.
Throw your
Last,
watch away.
yeah, people are asking still question. Do you ever feel ostracized in the mainstream circuit because you both maintain integrity and solicit laughs void of vulgarity, or do you adopt for gigs? I'll answer for myself first.
Yeah,
I don't adopt for anybody, and people. Funny is funny. People, sometimes people don't notice till you're off stage that you were clean. They have
yeah,
no clue. They're laughing like
and
they
that's the
did that.
best.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on that?
I had a guy one time tell me, he goes, "Man, you're funny. A little too clean for my taste, but you were funny." I'm thinking that that doesn't make sense. That comment is like, so if I was dirty in some way or added colorful language to it, it would have made it funnier. I mean, how is
Mm,
that? Because I mean, I've seen plenty of open mics. These people say the worst thing ever,
right.
and just the language, and it's just a reaction from the crowd. They're laughing because they're uncomfortable a lot of the
Right.
time. But for the most part, uh, I just do my set, and I try to do it 100% every single time, no matter the crowd, and that's how you win them over with your jokes and who you are, and that. And I do clubs, so I do get people pull me aside and are like, "You were so good, you were clean." It's like, "Okay,
Right.
thank you so much." And I know I'm clean. I'm trying. It's all on purpose. People always ask, "Is that on purpose?" Yeah, it's on purpose.
Yeah.
That's who
It's
I
important.
am.
Yeah.
You
I
know.
always tell him my managers really would be upset. He hears everything I do, so he gets upset. They go, "Oh, is he here?" No, he's up there, but he
Yeah,
knows
yeah,
what I'm
yeah,
doing. How
yeah.
can people get a hold of you to book you for speaking? Maybe there's a company that wants you to come and do improv for their team or staff. Maybe someone wants you to come and do production because you, as a comedian, understand. And that's one of my biggest challenges when I do my stadium events. Is I always bring a camera crew, and some of them, like the last show, we spent so much money. They have no
Mhm.
clue. They would move the camera on the punchline to the audience before they laugh. I was like, oh, how did you do that? And they're
Yeah,
like, well, we want to show the audience right before they laugh. No, 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 no. You got to wait on the face for the punchline.
yeah.
So where can they get a? I know Michelle put Brian Kohatsu, which is Kohatsu. If you're listening, you're
Mhm.
not watching. Brian Kohatsu, Kohatsu.com, and you can get a hold of him there. You can watch his videos. You can book him. You can connect with him. Are you
Yeah.
working on anything right now, Brian?
I have a big video job that I'm in the middle of at the moment,
Okay.
which will take
No
the next
books, no
it's taken a
new.
month of my life away from me. It's the one
Yeah.
client I still kinda handle, and that's just out of a 30-year friendship. So I've got a lot of that going on right now. Like I said, that'll take up a month. After that, then I am back on the road again a little bit here and there, and then CCA retreat this year.
You're gonna be there?
I will be hosting it again this year.
Oh,
So
perfect, perfect.
apparently, I did okay last year. So
Yeah, you did wonderful, wonderful.
nobody,
You and Junebug, that was
yeah, June,
a
yeah.
great
So
combination.
yeah, so we'll be back. That's June 5th, 6th, and 7th. So we'll be back for that. Looking forward to that again this year and seeing everybody. Hopefully, Naz, are you coming out to that? I hope.
I think I am. Yeah, I'm
Okay.
trying. I talked to David.
Okay. Good.
I'm trying to adjust my schedule because I'm going to be in Colorado for 3 days, so I didn't want to be gone that long. But
Okay. Gotcha.
yeah,
Well, hopefully we
well,
will see you there. But
yeah. Well, thank you so much for taking the
yeah.
time,
Oh,
and thank your wife and kids for
I
giving
was so
me time.
excited when you called because I enjoy last year at CCA. I bumped into you at breakfast that morning,
Yeah,
and it was so good to talk with you because when I'm hosting, I don't get to talk to everybody. So I was
Right.
super excited to talk to you. So
So good
really
to
enjoyed
meet.
this. So
Well, thank you so much for your time and appreciate you and sticking around. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for watching. Another wonderful, wonderful man and wonderful guest. Just amazing and so good to spend time with him. And yeah, go to briankohatsu.com and just see where he's at. Go see him. If you're in Arizona or somewhere close where you can have him come to your church or to your event or company, please do that. And just want to remind you, next Friday, this coming Friday, if you're in Florida, Port Charlotte, New Day Christian Church, I'm going to be there doing an event. And then on Saturday, I am going to be in the daytime. I'm doing a men's conference in near Seattle and Snohomish. So if your parent, your dad, your brother, your son wants to attend, please let him know. I'm going to be at the house church in Snohomish. Also, Sunday morning, I'll be teaching there. So, hope to see you there. Love you guys. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to the podcast. It will really help us to have more subscribers, not just people check in every week and watch it. And I know there's hundreds of you that watch it, but at least subscribe. All right. Love you guys and thank you so much. And you have a great night. God bless you.